so I am in a strange situation. For background, I used to date my ex-girlfriend Kate about 2 years ago. Our relationship ended on a sour note when I found out she was cheating on me. She became distant, glued to her phone, and eventually, I caught her sexting another guy under a fake name. When I confronted her and asked her why, she brushed it off with a sense it doesn't matter now before walking away. It was a pretty shit time of my life. Recently, my cousin Tony announced his engagement to Kate. Although we are not that close, we do keep in touch occasionally. I knew he had a girlfriend but I had no idea he was dating Kate until their engagement announcement. Tony reached out to me, asking if I could photograph their wedding. It seems that's how Kate connected the dots and realized Tony and I are related. She sent me a text, pleading with me to let go of the past and not tell Tony about our history. According to her, revealing the truth would ruin Tony's life. Honestly, I wasn't going to talk about it but her text felt very strange to me. But I feel very complicated about this. My sister and my girlfriend are saying that Tony deserves to know the truth. They believe it's unfair for him to enter a marriage without knowing Kate's history with me as we are a family. I've moved on from the relationship. It's been 2 years, and I don't want to dredge up old drama. Plus, there's the fear of backlash. What if Tony doesn't believe me? Update: I made the decision to talk to Tony about Kate, and unfortunately, it didn't go as smoothly as I hoped. My sister met with Tony first and told him about me and Kate. Tony then called me and asked to meet him. When I sat down with Tony and explained the situation, he told me that he was aware that Kate had cheated on her ex before, but he didn't know it was with me. He kept apologizing, saying he did not know, and I kept saying that it's not his fault, but he looked so angry during our conversation. Tony confronted Kate, and from what I heard, it wasn't pretty. Apparently she denied it at first but eventually confessed, and I don't know what actually happened, but the police was involved, but there were no charges from what I know. Since our conversation, Tony has been distant to me. He's not talking to me and I think he has blocked my number, and I understand that and I want to give him space. But I feared this happening and feel very guilty about it. And to make matters worse, this leaked to the rest of the family, and my mom and aunt are furious with me for bringing up the past. They believe I acted out of spite and that it was unnecessary to interfere in Tony and Kate's relationship. They've accused me of causing unnecessary drama and jeopardizing family unity. The rest of the family seems conflicted. Some are on my side, believing that Tony deserved to know the truth before getting married. Others think I overstepped and that it wasn't my place to intervene. As for Kate, she has apparently reached out to Tony to do couples counseling and Tony seemed open to it. Overall, the situation has caused more harm than good, and I can't help but feel guilty for how things have turned out, even though I feel that telling Tony the truth was the right thing to do.
Second story.
My wife has been having an affair for 2 years, and I have been aware of it pretty much the whole time. We've been together 7 years and married for 5. We don't have kids. I have been work from home since COVID hit. For the last 3+ years she has been a secretary in a large office building. Now I'm not gonna pretend like we had the perfect marriage 2 years ago and that I can't believe she would do this. I was totally complacent in my life and really wasn't putting much effort into our relationship at all. That doesn't excuse what she did, and she had her own issues with intimacy and communication that lead us to where we were then. I just want it clear I'm no saint in all of this. I started looking into lawyers and figured we could just do this easy and amicably. Well, here's where the crazy part happens. When the EA started, she seemed, I wouldn't say happy, but less sad than the weekend after the PA started. I got the shock of my life. She came into my office that Saturday morning and asked me to take her on a hike and picnic. Initially I thought this is a moment to burst her bubble and reveal what I know. But I didn't. I decided to actually get up and do this. I kind of thought she was gonna reveal it herself and ask for divorce. We had a real nice time, it was a great day, and she never brought up anything. I chalked it up as one more good memory before we end this thing. Then she asked me out again that week. Then we had intimacy. I don't know if it was shame, or guilt, or what, but she was basically taking the initiative to improve our marriage. After that first week she began to open up more about her feelings. I for some reason had a fire lit under me, and started to make some effort in our relationship, started reconnecting with some old friends, got all the laundry off the gym equipment. The affair continued, but as we spent more time together over those early weeks, and since it really gave me no concern and everything seemed better, I decided to just forget about it and divorcing her and just start enjoying my life. I do still love this woman very much. Up until 2 days ago we were in a really solid place. We had outings every other weekend, date night Thursday, regular intimacy and communication. I don't even read their messages anymore, just occasionally to see if it's still going on. 2 days ago I noticed she was having frequent and long conversations with one of her close friends. I asked my wife about it and it turns out this friend's husband got caught having an affair. My wife has been comforting her. This would not have been a big deal, but my wife then started bashing the husband for cheating. I don't know why I said it, but it came out. You're one to judge. She got super defensive and pressing me for why I said that. I initially tried to apologize and move on, but she wasn't letting up and I eventually spilled I've known about her affair the whole time. She tried to play dumb, which annoyed me, so I started citing specifics. She then got really mad at me, started crying, accusing me of not caring about her. I got pissed then started yelling at her, because I'm not the one having an affair. It got heated. We went to separate rooms and slept it off. Yesterday morning she got up extra early and went to work before I got up. I tuned back into their messages and she had broken up with AP. He was messaging her constantly on every app and she just kept blocking him. She came home early yesterday. I went to talk to her and she stopped me, looked at me and asked how I could let this go on. I replied, because I just didn't care. She then called me a huge asshole and locked herself in our bedroom until she left for work this morning. She got home tonight, said nothing to me, and locked herself in again. I can't even imagine in what bizarro world I could possibly be the asshole in this situation. Is there a perspective out there where I am? If so, please share it with me, because in my mind there isn't. Update. First off, I appreciate everyone's comments on the original post, except those of you that just get on and throw insults. You need therapy more than anyone on this whole sub. If you missed the original post, you can see it in my profile. I decided against showing the post or any comments. Instead I used it to organize my thoughts and points. Our conversations I am going to share below in no way were linear. We jumped around in topic, talking this, which led to that, only to come back to this, reveal that, and so on. So I'm going to just try and put it all together as coherently as possible. Like I said in a comment on the other post, my wife finally came out at around 12:30 a.m. Friday and joined me on the couch in my office. She curled in next to me and just cried for a solid 15 to 20 minutes and we were just silent otherwise. When she was ready, we began talking until we were worn out. We picked that up again last night, which was also taxing. We finally finished up, for now, this morning. This includes long spells of crying, hysterical bonding, and a phone call to AP while I eased and he was aware. The start of the affair was pretty cliche. Flirty small talk, makes her feel good, escalates, becomes messaging and sharing personal details, and eventually to kissing. Probably don't need to explain the rest of the escalation from there. We talked a lot about what got her to that point. She remembers it seemed like nothing she did could get my attention. I agreed with this completely. I also stated though that I don't remember too many attempts. She acknowledged that she wasn't very forthcoming in those days, always hinting at what she wanted and not just outright saying it. There wasn't any one moment, she said, that broke the camel's back, just a collection of times. When AP came into the picture, the validation was intoxicating, especially in contrast to years of neglect. However, she said she felt a ton of guilt and shame. She was in the same spot I was when it started, assuming we would just divorce as we were largely just roommates at that point. The hike and picnic were supposed to be the last bit of assurance that our marriage was over. She did not expect me to agree to go or for it to be such a pleasant time. From that point we started reconnecting and she made the decision to make the effort as long as I kept making the effort. She opened up more, and I was responding. That got us to where we've been the last 2 years. As to why she didn't end it with AP once I was back, she admitted she was just being selfish, kept telling herself she would but didn't actually want to. I was planning dates, listening, and back to initiating intimacy often. He doted on her and validated her. She had the best of everything. Eventually she just convinced herself what I didn't know didn't hurt me. This makes her feel stupid now, knowing I knew the whole time. We talked about my surveillance and she said she is having trouble getting over this and feels betrayed. I didn't give her any excuses. It came up because she did ask how I knew, and I told her she's been logged into our old desktop, my work computer, on her email, Insta, Facebook, etc. for years, as well as it being connected to our cloud. I owned up to how wrong this was, but we both agreed that if we are going to make the reconciliation work, we're going to have to forgive each other for a lot of things. As many said and were right about, my "I don't care" statement was extremely triggering and hurtful. It took her right back to where we used to be. I took advice and organized my thoughts and told her that it wasn't that I don't care. I care about her immensely and changed for the better these last 2 years because I wanted to be there for her. I then explained I should have said it doesn't bother me. She's still trying to wrap her head around this. I'm trying to explain how I just basically don't feel jealousy or insecurity, which is hard to put into words. It also causes a mix of emotions on her end. I told her that having her be happy again made everything worth it for me. Also, the affair got me off my ass for the first time in years, so in a way I've kind of told myself it was a blessing these past years. Finally, to address the breakup with AP, she said once it was out, she went into a doom spiral thinking everything in her life was a sham. She felt guilty over everything. She cut him loose and locked me out. She was basically beating herself up for being awful to both of us. Listening to her call with him was hard even for me. From what she's told me in our conversations, and the call, I'm pretty convinced he was as in love with her. I think he was holding out hope we would divorce at some point. She laid it out for him that we would not and were going to do everything to make this marriage work. He didn't beg or degrade himself but seemed genuinely hurt. When the call ended, she rebuked him and stated she has to go and see so he can heal and actually go find someone, and we can fix our issues. We are working out our plans to fix our marriage. Not totally sure where to go from here. She wants individual counseling for herself, so we will make that happen. After she has done that for a while, we will probably start marriage counseling. We are also going to symbolically fresh start, and I'm getting a new work computer. From there, it's being open and honest with each other every day, and making sure we are being present in our lives. I love this woman very much, and want to make this work. Now to address some of the other questions. Sorry to all the poly-NM people, we did not discuss this. She never called herself anything other than a cheater or unfaithful. I don't have the emotional bandwidth to bring this up right now, so if this is ever discussed, it'll be down the road. I've never been tested for autism or depression or anything really. I've always been stoic, and was raised that men don't show emotion, only when appropriate. I seriously doubt I have any underlying undiagnosed mental health issue. I've never been much of feelings person, but I'm good in a social scene and understand societal norms. Some people just don't feel as deeply as everyone else seems to. Don't know if this is the update everyone wanted, but it's where we are at today. Might be somewhere totally different tomorrow. Right now all I can do is take it a day at a time.
Third story.
The night of the bullshit, we'd had an argument about the distribution of chores that I think triggered it. I thought it wasn't fair that I was doing the majority of the housework, On top of being a full-time student at university and having a job, he seemed to think the chore distribution was fair and that I was overreacting. We came to a solution after all the bullshit I am about to tell you about occurred, but essentially I was feeling overwhelmed and unheard and he was feeling stressed and confused as to why I thought this was a problem. Later that night we're discussing the situation again, and I express how it feels like he's not listening to me and how distant he's been lately. Then he says there's a reason for the distance and I ask him to tell me why. He says that he thinks we moved too fast, he doesn't know who he is, and he wants a divorce. He says he cares about me, but doesn't love me and that he's been feeling this way for a while now. I've promised myself since years ago that I would never try to make someone stay with me if they don't want to. So, as much as this hurt, I said okay. I cried, he cried. I did ask if he wanted to try couples therapy before divorcing but he said no. We decided to sort out details in the morning. I grabbed some blankets to sleep on the couch and he went upstairs to bed. In the midst of my sitting on the couch crying and looking up apartments, what felt like hours later, I hear him get up and come to the living room. He sits down next to me and just says I fucked up so bad. I freeze when I hear this, because I've barely processed the reality of what just happened and I can already see where he's going next. I ask him to elaborate and he says he doesn't want a divorce, that he doesn't know why he said that and he's feeling the most regret he's ever experienced in his life. He says that he realizes he fucked up and I don't have to take him back. At this point I've experienced so much emotional whiplash that I've completely numbed out. I'd already cried all the tears I could. Now was just sitting there next to my sobbing husband and saying I'd take him back even though I'd barely processed the fact that he'd wanted to divorce me. I told him I wanted couples counseling and for him to get individual therapy and he agreed. I've asked him about individual therapy in the past but he never wanted to until now. It's days later now. I've gone through all the stages of being mad at him, depressed at my marriage almost ended, insecure about myself, accepting the reality, feeling love for him, feeling numb, cycling through all these emotions over and over again at random. We're searching for a couples counselor but a lot of them have waitlist right now. So in the meantime I just want to know, if anyone has been in a similar situation, does it get better? Does the trust ever come back? I feel like I can't trust him at all now. When he touches me I freak out sometimes because that's not the comforting feeling I'm used to when he touches me. It's the feeling like he's suffocating me. I want to be here for him and help him through whatever mental shit he's going through. But this has been affecting my work and my school. I left my dream school for him. I could just keep prioritizing him above everything else when he clearly doesn't do the same for me. And yet until now he was doing the same for me. He's always been so sweet, buying me flowers, making dinner, going out of his way to make time for us. And before you scream abuse, please know I've been in abusive relationships before and they felt nothing like this. He's not like those guys. This is the first time he's ever done something like this. I just don't know how we can recover. Any advice about how to get through this would be appreciated. Update: 1 year ago I 24F made this post asking for advice on how to continue with my relationship after my now ex-husband 26M betrayed my trust by telling me he wanted a divorce out of the blue and then changing his mind just a couple hours later. As stated above, he is now my ex. Those of you who said that he would repeat the same behavior again, you were right. On New Year's Day 2024 he said he wanted a divorce, packed a bag and left to a motel, then came back hours later. I'll admit, I was a wreck the day. I asked him if this was just going to be like last time and he said no. I asked him if he felt mentally okay and he said he felt fine. I got on my knees and begged this man to stay, not my proudest moment, and he looked at me with empty, vacant eyes and just left. I was in tears for a couple hours, but then I opened this app to try to distract myself and saw he had made a now deleted "please don't go looking for his account" post on the divorce subreddit about how he left me and felt bad but didn't regret it. Then I went from depressed to furious. I called my landlord and told him that I was getting a divorce and needed his help in changing the locks. My landlord was very understanding and helped me do so. A few hours later I heard a knock on the door and when I opened it my ex-husband was standing there, I didn't even get a chance to tell him to leave because he immediately collapsed into my arms sobbing. The first coherent words to come out of his mouth were, "You're not gonna take me back, are you?" Reddit. I would love to say that I rejected him right then, but I didn't. Even after all of this, I was still hooked into his web of manipulation. So instead I sat down with him and had a long discussion about how much he hurt me, how in the middle of working to rebuild the trust that had been broken between us, he completely destroyed any progress that had been made and found a way to make that distrust even worse. I don't remember the details of what he said, but he always knew what to say to get me to feel sorry for him. The night ended with me saying I would take him back. He was smiling, saying he'd never felt so hopeful. He wrote me a love poem that night for the first time in years. Meanwhile, I had never felt so broken, and I told him that after he said he felt so hopeful, he shrugged it off and said I'd feel better in the morning. I did not, in fact, feel better in the morning. During the next few days, while I was trying to pick myself back up, study for finals, and continue going to work as if nothing was wrong, he went back and forth every day on whether or not he loved me, whether or not he wanted to be married to me. He said he thought he loved the idea of being a husband more than he loved me. My last straw was when I reached out to one of his childhood friends, who I had interacted with a few times and though I could trust to be honest with me, and asked him if he had ever noticed any red flags in my ex-husband's behavior in his past relationships or behavior towards women in general. This friend assured me that he had never noticed anything of the sort. I thanked him and asked if he could please not tell ex-husband. I asked that since I was afraid of what he might do. When my ex-husband came home from work that day, I could immediately tell he knew. He opened the front door so forcefully. He sat down on the couch next to me, told me he knew, and said in a low and almost growling tone of voice, "But I know you didn't mean any harm by it." I was frozen in fear and couldn't say anything. But then he grabbed my face and turned my head to look at him, and his eyes looked so cold, and he said again, "You didn't mean any harm by it, right?" I nodded and forced myself to answer right. And I knew in that moment this man would kill me if I didn't find a way out of this relationship, if I didn't kill myself first with how bad my mental health was getting after dealing with him insulting and belittling me day after day. I was genuinely starting to spiral into a dark place I hadn't been to in years. The next day while he was at work, I packed a bag, wrote a note telling him I'm leaving and that I want his stuff out of the house when I get back, left the note on the counter with my ring and spent the night at my mom's. It is an uncontested divorce, filing by mail, and should be finalized in April. I started the paperwork at my mom's house that first night of separation. Since ending my relationship, I have gone to therapy and realized just how abusive and manipulative my ex-husband was. I also understand how broken he is, but being mentally unwell is not an excuse for abusive behavior. What he did to me was abuse, and I'm not afraid to say that anymore. I have reconnected with old friends and made new ones. I have started doing things that I love again. Things he never wanted me to do, like wearing red lipstick or eating mint-flavored things and going to concerts. I've realized I never want to be married again. I've discovered my polyamorous identity and have begun to explore this side of myself. I have plans to move out of my hated hometown that he had dragged me back to. I feel so much more joy, freedom, and self-love than I ever did when I was in a relationship with my ex-husband. I won't be using this account anymore after this, as I have no need to. But I want to thank this community and the other Reddit subs that I've participated in. If I had never made my original post, I don't think I would have realized just how awfully my ex-husband treated me. Thanks to the support of hundreds of voices telling me I deserved better, I realized how true that statement was. I deserve better, and now I have better. I also want this update to be a beacon of hope to anyone who has found themselves in a similarly emotionally verbally abusive situation. Life is so much better when you leave. There is hope, there is light on the other side of the pain. Thank you again, Reddit. I am finally free. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed today's story, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Red Relationships to never miss a future upload.